everyone can hear you sniffling, right?
Oh, crap. Hello, and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly program where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. As a reminder, the thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, we love seeing you chat live on Facebook or YouTube every Thursday night. So hello and good evening. And we made it to 5:01. This is amazing. So the chat's already lit up. Thank you, Brother Jose. We're going to give him some love because it's been a week already since big episode 500. But we'll get to that. What else? Remember, your chats may show up in the show, so watch what you say. And if you can't catch us live, catch us in the replay or in your favorite podcasting app. You know me. My name is John T. Ruark. I'm a past master of the Patriot Lodge in number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia. Over to you, Jason.
Hello!
Hello!
I'm alive and back for 501.
I'm surprised.
Yes, last week you all may have noticed I got up and left about halfway through.
He's like, that's it. I'm done. Enough of this show.
The reason I left is the reason why Joe Martinez is not here tonight. Yeah.
Say less.
Bit of the flu. But back in Past Master Vacation Lodge number 16 in Clifton, Virginia, and super excited to be here.
Yay! Well, glad you're feeling upright and mobile. Joe, yes, Jason has the gift that keeps on giving. So, and who knows? You know, we're talking about it with some other brothers.
I'm a super spreader.
Between that, Masonic Week, all these other Grand Lodge things, like it's a wonder, you know, that we don't classify those as super spreader events. But you know what? We're all gonna get it sometime. So glad you're feeling good. And yeah, Joe's under the weather. RJ will be here in a few. Let's thank the patrons who support the show.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. We made it to 500 episodes thanks to you. It's a labor of love. We have hosting costs and all the money goes right into the show. So you guys are amazing. Thank you for supporting the show for many years. And 11 years. And 499 more
11 years come
episodes.
Tomorrow.
Oh, wow. You actually went back and checked the OG date. Look at that. Nice.
Or, sorry, 5 days from now, because technically we recorded our first episode on February 18th of 2014.
Nice.
Yeah.
You're now our official TMR historian.
I wasn't before. Yeah.
It's official now. Comes with a dues card and a certificate.
Yay!
Hooray!
That alone is worth the price of admission.
Awesome. Very, very cool. Okay. Yeah, what do we have next? We have Tarot Card of the Week, right?
Very, very excited.
Tarot Card of the Week.
Much fun, much awesomeness.
Never gets old.
Never gets old.
It's like making fun of Joe. Never gets old.
There's a dark joke that I almost said, but I'm not going to say.
We are. No.
There you are. Tonight, we're going to use a brand new deck that I got from a one Jason Richards as a birthday gift. So let's take a look at that. This is the Tarachi set. What do we got here? There we go. Focus. There we go. What I like about it, it's inspired by the classical art style. It's got skulls. It's got the French-inspired design. It's got the antique style. It's got it all. It's got it all. The Rider-Waite symbolism is there. And it's subtle, right? It's not in your face, too busy. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw one based on the expedition of brothers Lewis and Clark. We're going to see how tonight's show aligns with their journey. Let's pick one here.
Yep. And as you're picking, this is Tarochi by Mr. Freiborg. You can go and check out their website, arcanum.com. It's with a V, not a U.
Nice. All right, what have we got here? We have Fonte di Denari. All right, so what is that? What do we have here? We have the page of coins.
Ooh. And it is Arcantum with a V instead of a U, not Arcanum.
Mhm.
Just FYI.
FYI. Yeah, so you got some skull imagery there, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Page of coins, right? We are embarking on new material things.
Yes.
Right.
New exploration.
New
right?
exploration.
Looking for gold. Looking
Right.
for riches.
A material search, not a spiritual search per se.
Correct.
Right? Mm-hmm.
Yes. It's also the start of the journey. The
Yes.
page is undertaking that new journey, whereas the knight is like really in the thick of it.
Mm-hmm. And you're probably a little naive when you start off.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which, first fun fact of the night, because I know Clark was from Virginia. Then
he was born and raised Lewis.
Lewis was from Virginia.
Was born in Albemarle County, which is where I was born.
Oh, small world.
Yep.
So fun fact there is, because of the naivete, when taking on this expedition, they had heard that there were mountains out west. But the only mountains we have in Virginia are the Blue Ridge Mountains, which are really more of hills. And when they got to, like, say, the Rockies, they were like, oh, crap, those are mountains. What we have are speed bumps here in Virginia. Yeah. So, yeah, that's an interesting
rolling
little
hills.
Historical fact. How you can, sure, mountains, how hard can they be? How big can they be? Right? So there we go. That's a good one to kick things off, a brand new expedition. And thanks again for the awesome tarot deck.
No problem. I'm glad you liked it.
It's become my new daily driver.
It's one of those things where I saw it and I had to buy it for myself. And I'm like, John probably like it too. The best gifts are the ones you buy an extra copy of for yourself.
Yes, exactly. And do you buy your son 2 copies of toys? One for him to play with and one to keep mint in box? No, it's just me. Okay, got it.
No, he and I have what you would call divergent interests.
Fair enough. That's another joke I'm going to keep to myself. Let's get to tonight's episode, which is Brothers Lewis and Clark. All right, and again, before we get started, I do want to give a special shout out to Brother Jose, who donated through Super Chat 501 cents. So, kicking off episode 501. So thank you for that. That was very kind of you.
You have to get the pennies in now.
Before they go away. Stop printing.
Continue them. Yeah.
All right. So, Lewis and Clark, fascinating characters. I was fortunate enough to take like a history-inspired leadership course back in 2007, I believe.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and they did this company that did it did one on leadership lessons from Lincoln. I think I actually still have a book back on one of these bookshelves about that. And they took you to the battlefield and kind of walk you through that, and then show here at certain pivotal points, here's what was going on through these people's minds, and here's how some of the lessons you can take away from it. Staged, hokey, but it. I got something out of it. If nothing else, it was fun to walk the battle around. So they did another one in the St. Louis area, focused on Meriwether, Lewis, and Clark. So we actually went to a couple of the sites there in the area and kind of talked about what they had to go through and all the leadership they had to to have to endure and give while they were managing this expedition. Yeah, we can't give the penny away because almost bro Lincoln was on it. Yep. So let's show a little diagram because I found this one diagram on Wikipedia as a really good source to tell the story. And that is, let me find this here. On share screen. There we go. All right. So hopefully we should see that here. The Lewis and Clark expedition from 1804 to 1806. A 2-year expedition. Well, what was going on right before then, Jason? Like what's leading up to this expedition? Maybe this thing in the big pink area.
Thing in the big pink area, like the procurement, one might call it a purchase of one Louisiana territory.
They did. It was a steal,
Yes.
actually, right? They got it for like pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so Jefferson was president
Mm-hmm.
and worked out the Louisiana Purchase. And at the time, the government hadn't explored the territory, and so what they wanted to do was survey it, explore it, primarily so that other nations wouldn't encroach and start laying claim to it. And so Jefferson, who knew uh, Meriwether Lewis because they grew up in Albemarle County together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Lewis was back in the area at that point. I believe he had joined the militia in Albemarle County, and so um, Jefferson essentially appoints him to lead this expedition.
Yeah, and you can see where a clean break is here with the Mississippi River, right? We had the colonies expand into these territories and then kind of stop there because it was owned by the French up until 1803. Like, look, hey, we've got to go westward, continuing to grow this nation, and as they wait for the deal to go through, right? Jefferson kicks off this expedition. Jefferson is wanting a couple things to help grow the knowledge, really, of the history, right? Because they didn't know what was out there. They knew
Right.
there were native tribes. They knew there were Spaniards, Frenchmen, other countries, right, from all over, but mostly unexplored by the United States. So it was an expedition for animals, to see what animals were out there, what foliage, wild fauna, that kind of stuff. And fun fact, also Jefferson was a huge nerdy fan of woolly mammoths. And since
Really?
yeah, collected like as many of his friends as possible, he was collecting mammoth teeth and everything. So he knew that mammoths at one time had been in the North American continent. Technically the mastodon, but so hopefully he was looking to get evidence of either mastodon bone fragments or maybe they were still alive, right? Maybe it's like the Loch Ness monster. Maybe
Yeah.
he's still there. So so that's a little fun fact about the expedition as well. It's also a military expedition, right? Because most of the men who signed up for this expedition were soldiers.
Yeah.
And they packed a lot of heat. They had a lot of firepower with them for all the bullets, to make bullets. And
Black powder.
They had pneumatic rifles. So it was like brand new state-of-the-art technology. How they could use air power to fire guns very, very quietly and at rapid fire. So, yeah, it became helpful later when they were basically not using it so much to fight other people, but to hunt and really just show it off to the other tribes and other people that they encountered. So that's That's another interesting fact about that. Um, so we start technically in the Pittsburgh area because of the waterway, right? You can hop on that Ohio River and make your way over to St. Louis that way. That's where some of the men were gathered. They traveled on the waterways because there was no Interstate 66 yet, and so that's how they gathered in the St. Louis area.
I mean,
Jason,
you mean Route 66?
what did I say? Interstate?
Interstate 66 kind of stops at Virginia.
Yeah. Yes, you're technically correct, which is the best kind of
The
correct.
best kind of correct?
My man. All right.
Yeah.
So here they go. They're camping out, and they camp out St. Louis for quite a while. Actually, the whole winter of 1803 to 1804. Why did they do this? Well, they kind of stayed put. It's cold in St. Louis in winter. Well, they had to make sure the deal went through, right? Because if you start running into Frenchmen and the deal didn't go through, like, hey, you're technically, invading and all this. So they really had to make sure all the I's were dotted and T's were crossed. Gather supplies, right? St. Louis is a populous city at the time. They can at least regroup. It's near the waterway. They can just camp out there. And they actually set up this area known as Camp Wood or Camp Dubois. This was actually one of the things that I did see during my time out in St. This is a recreation of Camp Dubois, Camp Wood. That's it. That's all there is to it. It looks even worse in person. I could not imagine camping out in a winter in this type of setup. So that's the big takeaway.
Miserable.
Yeah. So again, you're already taking healthy men signing up for who knows what. They didn't know what they were going to expect to see on this journey. They thought maybe huge animals, maybe woolly mammoths, who knows. And they're going to get sick and die maybe even before they even get on the road. But yeah, it's fascinating again to hurry up and wait as they do in the army, and then you're still forced to have these awful living conditions to get started. And guess what? It's only going to get worse because now you have to make your camp everywhere you go. In 1804, that was probably glamping. That's right. Oh, look at you with 4 walls. Exactly. All right, let's get back to Camp Wood. So there we are, Camp Wood. We kick things off in early 1804. What was the actual kickoff date when they left Camp Wood? They started the journey May 14th, 4 p.m., May 14th, 1804. And their path was to take the Missouri River. Why would you
start in the morning?
You got to have breakfast. I don't
know. What about second breakfast?
Nice.
Just after 7th breakfast.
Okay.
They departed. They were hobbits.
All right. So while accounts vary, it's believed they had as many as 45 members, most of them officers, enlisted military personnel, civilian volunteers. And then they also had one slave who went by the name of York, who just happened to be a slave of William Clark. And we'll learn a little bit more about York. He has a fascinating story, as well as how he contributed to this. So up they go, up the Missouri River. They're now going to take this northerly pass to go up to North Dakota.
They suffer their only casualty of the entire expedition.
Right away.
Appendicitis. Fears no expedition.
What in the world? Yeah, it's an awful way to get started. Is to have Sergeant Floyd start to feel under the weather, and I don't think they call it necessarily appendicitis on the spot, but when people read the medical record or the diary, Lewis and Clark, right? Then okay, probably sounded like this, and therefore there's really nothing they could have done, right? It's if the appendix had burst, that's the word, had burst, then not much they can do. They can't turn around and go back. He would have been a goner anyway.
Well, I mean, we're talking about, early 19th century medicine. So
yeah, the rusty knife would have been
yeah,
just as bad.
had he been in Albemarle County, I fear he may not have fared any better.
So
this is turning into an episode of Drunk, but neither of us are drinking history. Very quickly.
True. What a good show. They proceeded on. So this is within like 6 months of their expedition. They go up there. They actually encounter the Sioux, Native American tribe. I believe it was the Sioux when they back to the naivete, the page of Pentacles. They just started handing out like tchotchkes, like freebies, because that's how they thought they were going to negotiate, and it was actually insulting to the tribe. I believe it was the Sioux, and maybe one of the other tribes, but to start saying, "Hey, buddy, hey, here's some free stuff," and you're like, "Hey, we're supposed to like barter, or negotiate as mano y mano, right?" And just to
as equal partners.
You just don't start bending your knee right away, and so that left a little bad taste in that first engagement.
Yeah.
So there's
you'll need to wait about 225 years or so to start doing that.
Exactly. There was another thing that I wanted to bring up. I'm trying to find my notes.
They are on the last screen you look at behind everything else.
Of course, it's that one tab that I haven't looked at. We'll find it later.
Yes.
So you can
when
see
when did they encounter Sacagawea?
Up here at Fort Mandan.
There we go.
Dakota. Yay! So we made it a year through their journey. They hang out there and camp out for that winter, because winter in North Dakota is
fun.
Amazing. Yeah? Question mark? And that's where they meet Sacagawea.
They got to see some big presidents, though.
Oh, nice. Let's see. So, trying to find my notes there. Who was Sacagawea? She, or Sacagawea, depending on how your historians translate that. I'm just going to go with the more common interpretation. She was a Shoshan Native American woman. She arrived with her husband and owner, Toussaint Charbonneau. Little interesting story about Sacagawea. She had already been stolen from her tribe a couple years prior. Because she's a young lady. Women were much, much lower class and were traded even as often as infants for goods and services. And having multiple wives wasn't a big thing, and as long as you could provide for them, and it just, they were a commodity. They were something to be traded. So she married a French soldier, because they're in the French territory, again by the name of Toussaint Charbonneau, and of course, so he signed up for the expedition as well. At the time, she's
eye on the Yankees.
Yeah. Why not? Like, hey, they're in my house. Let me keep your enemies closer. Is that what they say? So she's pregnant with child at this time, but yet goes on the expedition with child, carrying child. So that's amazing that she would suffer through that. The benefit is not as what you would normally see it or hear from, like, oh, she knew all the paths and she knew which hills to take and all that. She didn't she didn't know the territory as much as our mythology would like to believe. However, what did she do to help Lewis and Clark? She was there to help identify foliage, right? She was there to translate because even though her husband, Frenchman in the territory, he didn't know all of the tribal dialects. So he definitely needed her for that. And the most important thing with both Sacagawea and with York, the slave, was they were figures of innocence. They were that other than just having these white men coming their way through, especially when you're meeting other tribes, the fact that you're carrying, not only having a woman, but now, a couple months later, a woman with a baby on your team, they're like, okay, you guys can't be that bad if you're like caring for, feeding a little baby on your expedition. Like, you guys aren't here to go kill us and take all of our stuff. Like, there's a little bit of humanity in you.
That comes later.
Yeah, exactly. Just wait. Oh, man. So.
Gotta wait for Andrew Jackson for that.
That's right. He'll take care of that. So she is helpful in
also
in
a Freemason.
those aspects. Yes, that's correct. All right, so they camp out there and they start taking off with the full crew, in the spring of 1805. So now you can start to see where they are expanding westward. The legend here says the green line is when they went westward, and then the red lines are how they actually split up on their return trip. So the thick green line is how they started running through some of the areas, running into different rivers, different tribes, and then expanding westward out to Fort Clatsop, which is kind of right there on the Oregon line in winter 1805, 1806. So that's where they finally made it to camp out there. Perilous journey. Like I said, they had to navigate the mountains that they thought were hills before. They had to navigate multiple tribes. Most were friendly. They didn't have any straight out shootouts necessarily. I think there was one on the return trip. But again, no casualties other than appendicitis. So it's something to think about.
I am trying to find an article that I read earlier today on how Lewis actually named 3 bodies of water after 3 of the cardinal virtues.
What?
Yeah,
that's cool.
I am.
All right, you keep digging for that, because I have an interesting story while you're looking that up.
Okay, you tell the story.
Okay, so you can see they're now on this map, this white area, this uncharted area. Right? We know that the pink area has now been purchased as part of the Louisiana Purchase, but now they are no longer in American-owned territory, nor are they in the Spaniards' territory.
I got it.
You got it. All right, let me finish my thought, and then I'll cut it.
Do it.
One of the really cool ideas for the time, because you have to put yourself in context, right? We're in 1805. At the time, because of this expedition, because there's only 40 some odd of them, you now have a woman, a baby, a slave, a Frenchman. You got the start of a really good joke, all in this one expedition. The cool part is it became a democracy. That Lewis and Clark, especially when they're outside of the U.S. territory, U.S. laws don't apply. So the slave now gets an equal vote. So when they were debating on, well, should we go this way or should we go that way, we were able to. Everyone had an equal vote or an equal say into what the decisions were. fascinating idea. Again, think about how revolutionary that is for the time of this patriarchal, like white male society at the time, and the power structures and all that goes with that. So, what's fascinating about that is you could say a couple things to that. The little nuance is historians disagree on whether was it a poll or was it a vote. In other words, did they just kind of see how everybody was feeling and still made their own choice anyway, or did they actually do a democratic thing? Historians really can go either way, but there is record of them having their own input into that. So regardless, it's still wild for its time. And one thing that I find really fascinating about that too is Lewis was a Freemason before the expedition, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he
For quite a while.
yes. So he got his degrees in a lodge in Albemarle County.
Okay. So all the way back in Virginia.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, like Freemasonry is
Virtue Masonic Lodge number 44.
nice. So there's already this plant of democracy in their heads.
He was 22 years old, and he got his degrees in early 1797. So this would have been a good 6 or so years before he struck off on the expedition.
Nice. And we know he was active, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So did the Masonic institution inspire the democratic ideals of just this localized expedition? Right? We're all one team. Yes, we have people who are in charge of the expedition as leaders. However, we are now opening it up for democratic decision making. It's just fascinating for the time because they could have just charged full ahead, right? Probably into danger, right? Without consulting their crew. So that's just a fascinating aspect that goes there. So they're there at Fort Clatsop in the winter. Jason, do you want to say something?
Before they get to Fort Clatsop,
okay.
Backing up to Three Forks, Montana, Lewis named the river there Jefferson River. And he assigned Masonic names to 3 of the Jefferson River's tributaries.
No way.
And so they were wisdom, philanthropy, and philosophy.
Nice.
Yeah. And the names did not stick, and so they're known today as Big Hole River, Ruby River, and Willow Creek.
Oh, much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Fort Clatsop.
So they are at Fort Clatsop, and they're trying to get all the way to the Pacific Ocean. Fort Clatsop was, I want to say, it wasn't all the way at the beach, but let me see where it is. Okay, it was about 19 miles from camp to the Pacific Ocean. And the cool part is York became the first African American to reach the Pacific Ocean when he walked the 19 miles from camp with Clark. So again, pretty cool. They were able to make it all the way there and see the West Coast. All right, so they're returning back on their 2-year journey. They have to split up, so you can see the red lines diverge coming back towards the east. Lewis goes one way, Clark goes another way. They have some little skirmishes. Funny story, maybe not so funny at the time. Lewis gets shot.
Accidentally, right?
Accidentally. They're dressed in elk fur to stay warm. And so I believe it's kind of when they start to reconvene, like when these Clark and Lewis lines, merge back up, that the other side mistakes them for an elk and actually shoots Lewis.
Like,
oops,
someone
sorry.
with really bad eyesight.
Yeah, it actually was someone with bad eyesight shot him. So yeah, that kind of sucks. So Lewis was laying belly down in a canoe for a couple days, trying to shake that off. Fortunately, he survives. And and they finally make it back to St. Louis by the end, at the end of the expedition in the 2 years.
They brought a live prairie dog
Ooh.
back for Thomas Jefferson.
Mm-hmm. Part of their legacy that lives on is due to the diaries and the records that they kept.
Mm-hmm.
If it were not for Sacagawea, then part of those diaries wouldn't even exist. There was one time where one of their boats had either capsized or lost some of their bounty, and Sacagawea was known to be in the boat, like trying to stay afloat while reaching over and grabbing it. So she's recovered the diary, presumably while still holding her infant child in the other hand. So how cool is that? Right. And so we have that recovered diary to claim for historical purposes, right? Because again, a lot of things were documented as a result of that. So that's pretty much the 2-year story in a nutshell. I'm sure there's many more historians that could go into much more detail. But let's talk about their Masonic history as well.
Mm. So as we mentioned, Lewis got his degrees in early 1797 at the age of 22. He joined the Door to Virtue Masonic Lodge number 44. When they get back to St. Louis, they request a charter from the Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania.
Oh, really?
They do.
So Clark is not a Mason yet, right?
No. So Lewis seemed eager to introduce Clark to the craft, but Clark did not become a Mason until shortly after St. Louis Lodge number 111 was founded. And Lewis actually became its first master.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so he founded it and became its first worshipful master. And then I believe it was several days after its founding that Clark came in.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, because I don't think we have any initiatic records of Clark. None that
We just have
survived.
a Masonic traveling certificate that was given by St. Louis Lodge.
Okay. Gotcha. So it's interesting. From an epilogue to the story, there was another thing that I want to mention too. Another interesting thing about York. Let's go back to York for a second.
Okay.
Super strong, great with firearms, which is actually another out of character thing for the time. He was an equal marksman with everyone else, and he was able to shoot and hunt and everything. He also was known to be as dark as a bear. So very dark skin complexion. And just like Sacagawea being there as a representative of, kind of peace and unity, so was having York there. Although he was a slave, a lot of Native Americans had never seen an African American before and were fascinated by the color of his skin and just wanted to touch him and just see,
Did they try to wash it off at one point? I think I remember an anecdote about that.
Mm-hmm. And they called him, and the nickname was like the Great Medicine, because that was a term at the time from the native tribes where it was like, if it's something they couldn't explain, like it's magic, they would call, oh, that's just the Great Medicine. He's the Great Medicine. They couldn't explain how his skin was so dark. So again, it actually led to goodwill among the tribes along the way. So that's an interesting thing about York. York comes back. He's still a slave. This is pre-Civil War, still a slave with Clark. And all of a sudden, York's like, all right, so what's up? Like, I helped you out. We were kind of equals out there. Like, am I good? And Clark's like, no, you're not good.
No.
It's like, come on. Like, how? I can't imagine. Again, the situation, right, where he contributed so much to the expedition, and Clark's like, yeah, but no. Like,
Yeah, but you're still going to be my slave.
yeah. So
Yeah, that's garbage.
it's been said that he was sold later. It's been said that he got his freedom later. It's very inconsistent from what I was able to research really quickly. But yeah, I think that's really just kind of how things kind of ended for him. Even there may have been different identities that he assumed later on. So there's again a lot of interesting, sad side effects to the story. But yeah, you think someone who was treated as an equal for all but the indentured servitude part at the at the beginning of the expedition, and then yet when we come back home, it's like we're just going to pretend all that didn't happen and go back to the way things were. So, yep, that's kind of a bummer.
No take backsies.
No take backsies. Interesting article. Let me switch over to one from lewis-clark.com.
So while you're bringing this up, interesting to note, Clark did have a Masonic funeral.
Really?
Did.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, it looks like in his later years, Clark made a room in his house available for lodge meetings.
Oh, interesting.
When he died in 1838, he had a Masonic funeral.
1838.
Yeah.
All right.
A good 29 years after Lewis passed at the ripe old age of 35.
Oof.
Yeah.
These are young guys.
Yeah, Lewis was found with another gunshot wound. It's unclear as to whether it was a suicide or a murder. But he was found with his apron folded up in the pocket of his coat.
Presumably this apron.
That one. Yep.
That one. So, they say you're supposed to wear your Masonic apron at your funeral, but they don't want you to take that literally. Like, take it on your way to your funeral. Like, have someone have it there for you. You're not supposed to go rushing into it.
You're stretching awfully hard for that one.
I am. So, a good article here on Lewis as a Master Mason for our artifact buffs. Here is the rounded corner apron in the 1800s. Remember, we didn't get to the square aprons until the Industrial Revolution. This is a hand-painted silk, backed with linen, measuring 14.5 by 16.5 inches. It was passed down from his mother to his sister Jane and through her descendants to the Grand Lodge of Missouri. Once it was purchased in 1960 by Joseph Hopper, who donated it to the Montana Masonic Foundation of the Grand Lodge, Ancient Free Masons of Montana. And you can see details about some of the symbolism in there for those who aren't Masons, the all-seeing eye. What else? Skulls. Skull and crossbones. What?
There are no skulls in Masonry.
What? Let's see. Are there skulls? There's skulls in Masonry.
What?
Found it. See, you wear that, you're going to get shot. All right. What else do we have? Candlesticks and the sun, the moon. Yeah, I mean, iconography that is familiar for every Freemason, but it's kind of cool to see. Hand painted. An acacia tree, smooth ashlar, scythe and hourglass. Yeah, really cool stuff. The angle of the compasses is not 60 degrees though, so we need to make some edits there. But
Take it up with his estate.
yeah, for real. Awesome. So the real question remains is that did the virtues of Freemasonry help inspire some of the changes, decisions, leadership that come with the Lewis and Clark expedition, or was it just a nice story to tie together? What do you think?
I think there's an inherent love for science and knowledge that underpinned the Masonic experience at the time, coming out of the Enlightenment. And so I wouldn't hazard a guess that, Masonry directly contributed to like the egalitarian nature of it. It may have, but I do think it formed a pretty good foundation for a scientific expedition.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's an interesting charge, right? That leads behind it. Yeah, I've always wondered if the democratic decision making was explicitly inspired by the democratic voting that happens in a Masonic lodge. We already had democracy
Maybe.
at the time, right? But this was even
Freemasonry wasn't the only game in town.
Yeah,
as regards democratic thought, right?
but yet this was included women and slaves, right? As far as we know, that Jean Baptiste did not have a vote, but you never know. You might want to ask the kid which way they want to go. What's for dinner? But yeah, I mean, it makes an interesting story nonetheless, right? Did that in some way, the Masonic concepts of equality, being on the level, democracy, did that inspire, once they're outside of the U.S. territories, to say, what if we're all in this together? Why don't we have some sort of equal say? Whether it really was or not, that's still to be determined. But at least go through the motions as we're all here risking our lives together. I think it's a fascinating idea to consider and to mull about. Yep.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. That's it in a nutshell.
We already had our final question.
We had our final question. What else we got? I think that's it. I haven't seen RJ yet. RJ's going to show up like as soon as we end up the show.
Yeah. Be like, oh, hey, sorry I'm late.
Yeah. What did I miss?
Okay. Let's go back. Let's go back on. Yeah.
All right. Any last statements, Jason?
No.
Nope. All right. Well, this has been great. 501. Here we go. Let's go for another.
One last statement. Wow.
Snuck it in. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Keep searching for more light.